This is the disclaimer for Wildlife Control Consultant and Pest Geek Podcast for the Living the Wildlife podcast. Always follow national, state, provincial, and local laws when using pesticides and/or other control methods to manage pests. Wildlife Control Consultant, LLC, Pest Geek Podcast, Living the Wildlife Podcast, Stephen Vantassel, or their or his affiliates are not responsible for followers' use of the information provided here. Hi everyone, Stephen Vantassel here, giving you another episode of Living the Wildlife as part of the Pest Geek Podcast family. Hey, glad to have you on board. Hope you've had a good week as I'm recording here on Christmas Eve, and so I hope you're going to have a blessed holiday with friends and family as we remember the time of what this purpose of the holiday is, and so I hope that's certainly the case for you and yours. Wanted to continue our presentation on the 10 action items for the new year. Last time we did the first 5, but before we do that, do take a few moments if you would, and be sure that you subscribe to our channel and join us on Facebook. Join the revolution, as Franklin calls it, so we'd be glad to have you there. Also, take an opportunity to send questions, comments to me at wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com, wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. Would love to get your ideas for shows and perhaps people to interview or new products or questions that you may have about wildlife control. I'd be glad to get those because we want to serve the needs of the wildlife damage management community of which you are a part. So wanted to continue again from our last section. We dealt with the first 5 action items for the new year, and we can kind of review those quickly here. Look over your books, create a marketing calendar, reconnect with commercial clients and referral resources, consider new markets, and of course review your marketing materials. So now we're going to step 6, which is establish a training plan. Now, you may not have any employees. Actually, the vast majority of wildlife control operators, of course, operate single-person companies. Now, they may have a family member helping them with phone calls or bookkeeping, but in terms of the day-to-day grind, it's going to be basically just you. Now, for those of you fortunate enough to have a larger operation, maybe you have multiple family members working for you or working with you, even if they're not quote-unquote on the payroll, you should be thinking about how can I make them better at their job, because there's an old phrase, it came out through the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People program, which is one of your tasks needs to be sharpening the sword, sharpening the blade. There's an old story that was part of Stephen Covey's book there where he said, there was a man who was out chopping wood, and he was chopping wood, and someone says, well, why don't you take the time to sharpen your axe? And he said, I don't have time. I've got too much to do to sharpen my axe. I got to get these trees cut down. Now, when you listen to that, it sounds really, really silly, right? I mean, why wouldn't you spend a few moments sharpening your axe so you can cut the trees down faster? Well, I suspect, however, when it comes to your own business, you have the same problem. And you need to ask yourself, what is it that you're doing in your job that's taking more time than what it should? And that's often an issue of training. Or what new activity do you want to learn? So it takes you, maybe you need to learn how to use Excel spreadsheets better. Maybe you need to understand how to use the software for your accounting program better. Maybe you need to develop a little bit better skills on modifying your website. Now, you don't have to do these activities, right? You can hire someone. It may be cheaper for you to hire someone, hire that expertise, and put your energy into something else. But even things that you're good at, asking yourself the question, how can I improve? What is it that I can offer? Either my personal development, professional development. How can I make myself work faster or better for myself and my clients and my family? That's why you need to be thinking about a training plan. If you have a spouse who's answering phone, maybe you want to go online and find something about how to maybe answer the phone better. Maybe there's certain techniques. Maybe there's a better record keeping system. Maybe there is a better way to transfer information from her or him out to the field staff. Whatever it is, you need to be thinking about what you want to learn and train for the following year. Now, I always recommend, if you've listened to this podcast for any length of time, you know that I recommend everyone to find an article or a book that stretches you a little bit. Something that's not necessarily tied to making money right now. Now, I know that's difficult. You're under a lot of time pressure. I get it. But you always want to be asking yourself the question, how are you going to compete with your competition if you're just simply learning the same old thing? If you're not learning something different, something outside of making money right now, how are you going to handle the competition? Because here's the thing, ideas come from strange areas. Sometimes you may be reading an article on the biology of a species, and you're like, I don't care, Stephen. It doesn't help me make money. How do you know that? How do you know that journal article that you're reading, let's say you're reading something about gray squirrels, and it's really arcane and specific, and all of a sudden you learn something about their behavior or about their diet that brings you a new idea for maybe a bait or a trapping technique or an exclusion method, whatever the case may be. Sometimes when you're in the field as a professional for any length of time, you understand that the training you're getting, that learning something new, is often at the marginal level. It takes a lot of work to go from a 90 to a 93 in terms of a grade. It doesn't take very much work to go from a 50 to a 70. That's really easy. But getting someone to go from an A- to an A, like a 94, takes a lot of energy, exponential. And that's what you have to ask yourself, what kind of a professional do you want to be? Because oftentimes these are very marginal differences. So develop some sort of a training plan. If you've listened in my podcast, I've given you some resources. Get a new marketing book. Go online. Find something that's been... one of the ways you can find a good book is that when it goes into paperback. You don't need to read the latest and greatest book. Hardcovers are a lot more expensive, and you can often buy these books in paperback, because when they go to paperback, that means they've survived. They've gone into another printing. And meaning a lot of people liked it. So maybe there's something valuable there. You can learn more about sales. You can learn about biology. You can learn about making repairs. Maybe read a home inspection book, whatever the case may be. Maybe learn how to do a little bit more better vehicle maintenance, whatever the case may be. So think about what can help your company and move in that direction, and establish a training plan, not just for yourself, but also for those that work with you as well. All right. Evaluate your competition. How good are they? Now, how do you do this? Well, you can hire people that can be secret shoppers, and they can contact other companies and try to interview them. You can also ask your own clientele and ask them, they may tell you that they tried to hire someone else and maybe they fired them, or maybe they didn't return the phone call. But look at their advertising, visit their website. You may even want to have a call and ask them, what are they charging? What's their process? What do their trucks look like when you meet them? And so how do you compare with them? Are they in an area of service that you're not able to handle? Now, you don't want to get over analytical here, right? So you don't want to spend so much time looking in the rearview mirror that you're forgetting about what's coming ahead. So the point is you should always be looking to improve your company, so it doesn't matter what the competition does. But you do need to ask yourself, are they offering a service? And you can often do this through their advertising. Are they offering a service or a benefit or a warranty that you're not, that could be devastating to you? do you pay attention? And again, you don't have to be watching them like a hawk all the time, but this is an opportunity for you to check out their website, check out their advertising materials, and see how they're doing. Maybe drive by their home base if they have a shop and see how they're doing, how things look. Do they look like are they in good repair? Does it look like things are being kept up? Does it look like they're having financial trouble? And certainly you can interview your clients who will. Yeah, it's kind of creepy, but this is how you don't have to make it as, Gestapo-ish per se, but you do need to pay attention to what the competition is doing to make sure you're meeting the standards of the industry. Because if you're not, that can be a problem, maybe why your sales may be declining, or you may be getting hit by a truck on this issue and you certainly don't want to have that particular problem. So check them out. Prep your truck. Yeah, prep your service vehicle. This is something you really need to look into. You want to start the year fresh. Of course, in many parts of the country, tree squirrels are going to start the mating season around late January. And I know when I was in business, that was certainly starting to get a busy time. So you want to use these quiet periods of time to make sure everything's ready to go. Prep your vehicle. How are the tires doing? Does the oil need to be changed? Get a full safety check for your vehicle when you bring it in for your oil. A lot of your oil change places certainly doing a lot more than just simply changing oils. How are your windshield wipers? When was the last time you checked those? How are the hoses? How's your battery? Batteries do wear out. You start getting a battery that's 5 or 6 years old, there could be a problem, especially if you're in cold weather, hot, although I'm told sometimes hot weather is more damaging to a battery than cold weather. But a lot of times frequent stops and starts can really drain a battery because you haven't driven a long enough time to recharge and re-energize that battery. So when was the last time? How's your coolant going? I tested my dad's a little while ago in his car. And so how are things going? Are you making sure everything's in order? And this may be an opportunity for you to also check your vehicle. How clean is it and that sort of thing? And is it in good repair? Here's where we get into your inventory. Yeah, check out your inventory. This is a great opportunity for you to really check things out, both on the business office side of things and as well as your field equipment. Take the time to get a full comprehensive inventory. That a good inventory is not only, it's tedious, I get it, yeah. But take the time to get a complete inventory. Why do you want that? Well, what happens if your building burns down? How do you prove to the insurance company that you had these losses? Well, one of the ways you do that is have a complete inventory. How many traps do you have? What kinds of traps do you have? What are the brand names? And so are there ways that you can simplify your equipment, particularly if you have workers underneath you? You want to make this not stress their brain as much as possible. You want to standardize. And if you don't believe me, you want to read a book called The E-Myth, which certainly was revolutionary for me in terms of my understanding of how business is supposed to work. Your goal for your company is to ultimately sell it. And if you don't believe that, and if you're not marketing and working on your business in such a way for you can sell it, then you basically have a job. You don't have a business. Sorry to tell it to you that way, but the reality is that you need to be thinking about your business as, will this help me sell my business? And inventory is important. So you want to do a full-on, complete inventory of all of your business equipment. That's your traps, your baits, your exclusion equipment. Then you want to think about office supplies. What kind of paper do you have? What kind of equipment? What kind of computers do you have? Your cell phones? What kind of vehicles do you have? And again, put this all into a massive spreadsheet, getting down to numbers. Why? And then you want to put that document not only on the hard drive of your computer, but also putting it up on the cloud, so that if your building burns down, you're still going to be able to get that information. Do you need to make new purchases for the new year? Do you need to order baits? Do you need to order new traps? Do you need to order a new ladder? Have you checked your ladder? How old is your ladder? Remember that ladders that are tied down on vehicles are constantly getting vibration. Over the hundreds and thousands of miles that you're driving all the time, it's subtly wearing out your ladder. Is your ladder exposed to weather like rain and salt and snow? That's going to degrade your ladder over time as well. Is your ladder in good shape? How are the rubbers on the bottom of the ladder? Are they in good repair? Do you need to replace your ladder's feet, so to speak? Do you need to get new rubber bumpers on your ladder when you're working on houses? Do you need to get some more standoffs? I used to use a corner standoff, which was really helpful. I could put it up on the roof itself, which gave me some stability, or if I needed to put it on the corner of a house, it was awesome. And it was one of the best things I ever purchased. Do you need to get a ladder stabilizer? How about your fall safety equipment? Have you fallen with it? How old is it? Is it in good repair? Do you need to replace it? Your respirators, your filters. How about if you use rodenticides or pesticides, are they expired or do they need to be disposed of? Do you need to purchase new supplies? Are you going to try new rodenticides? Are there items that you need to make repairs on? Yeah, it can be a lot of work. Maybe you just need to organize your shop and make it more efficient. This is the things you want to do during your downtime so that when that spring crush comes, you're ready to go. And you have all the equipment that you're going to need. Because remember, you went back and you looked over your sales and you know when the crush has come. You know the kind of service jobs you're doing. There's a high likelihood you're going to be doing the same thing this year, if not more. Many businesses, when they're going along, they start getting into a stride, and when they're doing well, they often grow their business because they're more confident, they're selling better, they get their name out there, people are calling. Sometimes you expand your service area because you're getting more efficient. So you need to be sure that you're not just making people wait. Oh, I'd love to put that chimney cap on for you, but I don't have the supply. And then people are like, no, I'll call you back later. You need to be sure you're ready to go to make these sales. Do you need to get screens and hardware cloth and tools, and make sure things are labeled well and organized well in your vehicles? Get that all cleared up. Also take the time to be sure you're backing up your computer. Do you have a backup program for your computer? That's part of your inventory. Do you need to organize your files better? That's part of inventory as well. And do you have a backup program? I think that if you don't have, I use a lot of portable drives myself, but I also have a fire safe designed for electronics. And I keep so many backups, I have a backup off-site. So even if my whole house burns down and my electronic safe burns up. Now, the difference, if you're not familiar with electronic safes, fire safes, they're designed to protect equipment for about 20 minutes or so, depending on how much you want to spend, and didn't spend a lot, but it just keeps that equipment at a temperature of less than, I think, 100 degrees for like 20 minutes or so. You may say, well, Stephen, that's not very much. I can get a paper safe and it will do the same thing, but it's significantly cheaper. Yeah, because the walls are cheaper. Remember, what's the ignition point of paper? It's like 451 degrees, where you can melt down your electronic equipment at a little over 100 degrees. So there's a significantly difference in terms of the thickness. And remember, if you're in an area where you have a fire department nearby, chances are they're going to be able to start cooling off that fire soon enough before your hard drives are all garbage, But if you're going to do that type of approach, I still would recommend you have a hard drive off-site like I do, and you just back up regularly. If you don't want to have all that hassle, there's lots of programs on the internet where it'll automatically sync you to a cloud location. You just pay like a monthly fee, and it can do, hundreds of gigabytes, maybe getting into the terabyte version of it, area of it. So then you don't, if everything could burn up and you still have your data offline. It's also helpful in case you get a big virus or some malware in there where they take your computer hostage. You can say, well, we're just going to wipe the drive and start fresh because all of our material's backed up. Thank you very much. Okay, so that can also be a very powerful tool for you as well. So do that inventory. I know it's tedious, but definitely take the time to work on that. And then, I wanted to conclude with, if you're not planning a vacation for the coming year, could you take the time to do that? This is a time for you to look at your calendar and remember, is the business running you, or are you running your business? So we talked earlier about the importance of your wildlife calendar. And you need to be looking at your wildlife calendar. Are there going to be some slow periods or slower periods? And for some of you, you've been in business long enough. The fact is, there is no slow period. It's basically the difference between full on and really full on, right? So you're busy all the time. Nevertheless, you need to make sure you take the opportunity to plan a vacation with your family. This is going to be very important with children, of course. You're probably going to have to do something during the summer, which can be a busy time for you as well. However, you need to make sure this is planned into your schedule and that you work accordingly to that. You need a time to refresh. You need a time to recharge. You need this rebonding period for your family. And you also need to look at the calendar in terms of what are the holidays that are going on. Are you going to work those holidays? Are your kids are going to be home? Are you going to do some 3-day weekends? Remember, one of the most important things you need to consider is that divorce is an extraordinarily devastating to a business, because she'll get half unless you got a prenup, right? And so you want to be sure, and then you have all the emotional baggage involved with that as well, and it's just not a good out. And the devastation to your children. Don't believe any of this garbage. Oh, it's better for us to be happy for our kid. No, that's just a myth. The research is very clear on that. Whether you're a theist or not, children do not benefit from divorce. Okay, they just don't. Now, if you have a situation, well, my wife's trying to kill me, well, then in that case, the children would benefit from a divorce. Okay, however, that's pretty rare, right? And so take the time to be sure that your marriage is strong. Take the time to make sure that your family is strong. Sometimes you want to be sure that you're not spending so much time building your empire that you forget your family. And a lot of people have become very successful business people, and they've lost their family. And that was the price that they wanted to pay. And the reality is, it's not worth the price. You need to decide what kind of a business you want to run. Are you going to run your business, or is the business going to run you? You need to make that decision. It's not always about how much money can you pile on. If you're worried later on in life that you're now bailing your kid out of jail. Why? Because you weren't there for them. And that's something that you need to be thinking about. And that happens to people. Sometimes even the best parents in the world still have kids that go crazy. However, we all know that there are plenty of opportunities where kids go crazy. Why? Because they had disengaged parents. The parents were so busy with themselves, they didn't put any time in their kids. Same thing happens with marriages. Marriages need to be stoked. They need to be maintained. And if you're not doing something for your spouse, then to make her feel special, you're doing it wrong. You need to be sure that you're telling her how valuable she is, how important she is, so that you can keep this marriage alive. And that you need to be maybe taking some time in your schedule to looking at doing some weekend dates where you're able to just get away, just the two of you, where you're not with the kids. I can tell you, say, I don't have the time for that, I don't have the money for that. You're just not being creative enough, to be quite frank about it. You're just not. And you need to be looking at that. Do you have date nights? And you need to be thinking about, do you have family nights? Do you have date nights? Are you maintaining the vibrancy of your marriage? That's going to help yourself, because remember, you're not living to work, you're working to live. So keep that in mind. All right, well, let's kind of go over that list one more time for you, just to kind of start from the top. Number 1, look over your books. Number 2, create a marketing calendar. Number 3, reconnect with your commercial clients and your referral resources. Number 4, start thinking about new markets. Is there some new area where you need to get into? And again, a market can be a new service or a new area. And do you need to drop something? Review your marketing materials. That includes things, your vehicle, your brochures, your website. Establish a training plan. Evaluate your competition. Prep your truck. Make sure your truck is in good working order. Take your inventory. I know it's going to be a pain. And make sure you plan some time for yourself and your family to make sure that that's all in good order. Well, I hope you found those 10 tips helpful. My name is Stephen Vantassel, and you've been listening to Living the Wildlife podcast as part of the Pest Geek podcast family. And again, do take some time to reach out to me, wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com, wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. Love to hear your questions, ideas, comments about the show. You can also visit us on our Facebook page on the Pest Geek podcast family. Join the revolution. Join us there, and you can ask questions and, of course, comment there as well. And again, this is Living the Wildlife. Why do we call it Living the Wildlife? Well, because we want you to live the wildlife, not be the wildlife. Take care, everyone. Happy New Year.